a little bit about what they talked about, some of the key parts. Anybody?
Do I need to stand up?
So we did a lot of focus on who do we want to represent this group, because we do feel that having a good representation from our community would be very important, since they would be leading Alliance for Kids in essence. And so we just put down obviously the 7 mandatory members, because it's not really a choice, it's what we have to do. But some other things we looked at were a marketing agent. We do feel that could really bring something. School districts, because we do feel there's a disconnect between school districts and centers and in-home centers and things of that nature. We think local government, while it is a mandated on there, we were considering child welfare, CCAP, DHS, who do we want to have represented there? We do think parents are very important, and so we just highlighted that it is one of the mandated, but we need to hear their voices. Military representation, being a military town, we want to get their feet in the door on this as well. And then we went into some specifics about how a minimum term versus a maximum term and some of the nitty-gritty stuff, but I was just saying that, a group will be put together to very specifically outline all of that, and it will be taken to council for a vote before that decision is made. So,
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
It's a great memory that you share that so we can take notes and record it.
So basically, we sound just like you,
Yeah.
but we think the biggest thing missing is parent voice. And I also think that we need to look at maybe how we're holding these meetings, because how are we going to get parents to come to an early childhood council if they're working during the day? So that's going to be your biggest barrier. DHS came up, but there might be some other people within the government that might be better to bring, or additionally, we were thinking Pikes Peak workforce, which would be good because we have so many unemployed and for true gen. And the other thing was I thought about was the fire department and the CARES program, because they interface between Medicaid, they interface with the community, they are going out and following up on people who are in the emergency rooms a lot, that's how they're getting referred, and most of them do have children. So that might be really good. And they also have their team, don't they? It still goes out once a month just on mental health, correct? So they fill a lot of roles. But do you want to talk about structure?
So as we were talking about structure, we just talked about not wanting to lose the piece where people could come for some information. So where people would have meetings and whatever we call those. That it's really important. It's how people plug in. It's how people can find out about what's happening in the community, but also it brought about some other things that we really have to do a better job of making the information more accessible. Even today, I got about 75% of what you said, and I sit at this table, I sit at multiple tables, but there's still so many acronyms, so much minutia. We're not in your head. We didn't go through the processes with you. So, and that's really common. I bet I'm not the only one. Maybe I am, I don't know. Maybe I am. So just making sure that it's really accessible information for all these folks who don't speak early childhood or grants on a consistent basis, but that really do have great information from their types of work. Doing some training for new members to be able to really help them to have kind of know what it's going to look like and bring people together so that everyone feels like they have a voice and it just isn't dominated by a couple of folks. And just looking at what do we want for numbers, we kind of went through a couple of things. If we counted everybody on here, it was 18, which may be a little big, but it may be just exactly what we need. So when I looked around the table, I counted there's 7 folks here that are not staff or a part of the executive committee already, and I thought, gosh, if you add all these people here, we really do have a really nice broad base of what we're looking for, and this is probably the people who kind of attend, and so I think it really will meet kind of the needs that we have to get some of this work done.
The last thing I think we should think about, though, if we're going to start inviting all these other people, we have to give them a really good reason why they're here and what they're going to get from it. It's because to just invite some people and have them show up and you're talking about something that really doesn't necessarily affect them a whole lot or help them with their work or their missions, you're going to have to think about that.
We wrapped it up.
Yeah, we did.
Made a mess.
Well, just following up on what Kathy said, we also talked some about who should be at the table or who we'd like to engage. And one of the things that came up for us was the business community. We talked a little bit about it. Several of these meetings, there's been discussions about family-friendly workplaces. There's also been discussions among policymakers about why are we spending money on CCAP and for babysitting. And for the business community, there is a strong reason why to invest. And it would be nice to have them connect to this work. And even if they can't be a part on an ongoing basis, maybe we could think about what would meaningful outreach look like to engage them and to share some unified messages around that. So that was one thing. And then we also had missing some more engagement from the school districts. We brought up county leadership, however that may look, if it's county commissioners, if it's somebody who's making decisions about funding and policy. We talked about the meeting times as well, about expanding our meeting times so that we could be more inclusive of parents and of people who may be impacted by work schedules that can't be here. And we also talked about why we come. And we had some agreement around hearing about what is happening in the community is important to us, so that networking component. I am always amazed when we come to these meetings and we hear about Pyramid Plus and the impact that is having and positive solutions. And if I wasn't engaged, I would not be aware of those efforts and what is happening with that. And to me, that's really important. And I feel good every time I hear updates about that. And then in the current structure, we also talked about feeling slightly uncomfortable being asked to vote on things that we may not feel prepped to be able to have a meaningful voice in. So it kind of defaults to, well, does anybody look like they don't agree? I don't know. Sounds good. And also in the current structure, sometimes organizations don't always send the same people. So if that is our voting body, that's also a barrier. And then wanting for the staff at Alliance to have the flexibility to do your work without being burdened by trying to, in such a way of having 60 plus people be your voting body that determines whether or not you can move forward on something. So just having greater flexibility for the staff. Anything else?
Yeah, great information.
Go, why don't you go?
Underneath?
Oh, here, I can undo.
Oh, I was just going to go right over.
Oh, I'm okay.
Josie has lots to say.
Oh, great.
Hello, everybody. We talked about almost all the exact same things. We definitely talked about having parents' voice and potentially someone from CCAP to join us. What I didn't think about when you said 17 or 18 people, I counted the people in this room, and that's how many of us are here right now. So that's kind of what that would look like. So thank you for counting the list. I did not do that. We also talked about switching up when the meetings are held, which a lot of you mentioned, because if we want parents here, people from school districts, family child care providers, they might come in the evening, whereas the daytime is difficult. So I just jotted, maybe we could have 2 in the evening and 2 in the day. What else did we talk about? We didn't write anything on our big paper. Renee did draw me a beautiful picture of the history of the executive committee. So that was helpful. Would you like to add?
You did a great job.
No, I think we all seem to
We
be,
can have two speakers. Go ahead, Lee.
I think we are all pretty much on the same page that this needs to be done. We are constrained by our current bylaws, so did anybody put down that they want to work on bylaws? Oh, come on, it'd be fun.
Renee, we can send out an email.
We will send out, that's a good idea, we'll send out, and that's one other thing we did talk about is sending out some general messaging somehow or another to get, advertise to people that, hey, we're gonna have this meeting, come listen to us. Maybe we can talk about the why they need to come, why their voice needs to be heard, so that we're not just burning out the same leaders over and over again. So we hope that these changes will help with that. I think that's about all we did.
So wrapping up, that's great feedback. We'll take that forward. We'll get these notes all typed up for executive committee next week. It's my understanding we'll move forward with a bylaw ad hoc committee. So we will get an email. Just a note on the time frame. So according to our current bylaws, we need 30 days to agree to new bylaws and new structures. So the goal would be to try to get these revised bylaws possibly done by the end of December, so we can post them all through January. And then February is their next council meeting, so possibly a vote to possibly move forward, and then we would go from there. So we really do thank you for your voice, and it was great. And we'll put that together and move forward, and I really would like to encourage you to be a part of the bylaws ad hoc committee to continue that voice, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so I think that's it. And it's just about it's exactly 4 o'clock, Dana. You cannot take more than 30 seconds. So.
She raises her hand and points to somebody else.
I did that. What's wrong with that? I did it.
This is a form, and on behalf of Kathy Dobbins and Catholic Charities, if you know families who are at home with young children, preferably 3 years of age, we have Hippie in our community now, and they are looking for 45 families by the end of December. They have 11. So they've been to a lot of outreach in the community, but I think it's going to be a personal relationship that might bring some families to them. So if you would connect with Kathy, if you want to connect with me, I have some brochures, I didn't bring them with me, but we would love to get that information into the community. And if you personally know someone that you could invite to engage with them, I think they would be very, very pleased with the program that's happening.
Thank you all. See you.